The Galactic Council chamber had never seen such disorder. In the 3 days since humanity's departure, the 12 remaining species had done nothing but argue. Diplomats shouted over each other. Ancient alliances cracked under pressure. Accusations flew like weapons. High Counselor Zora stood at the central podium, trying to restore calm. His forearms waved for silence, but no one listened. The Valkyrie had always been the dominant voice in this chamber, but now even their authority was being questioned. "This is exactly what the humans wanted," Zorath bellowed. "They want us to fight among ourselves. We must remain united." The Thashan ambassador, a being of flowing silver liquid named Crystallis, rose from their seat. Their form shifted and rippled as they spoke. "United? We have been united in our contempt for humanity for 3 centuries. Where has that unity brought us?" "To this moment of crisis. The humans are bluffing," Zorath insisted. "They will return. They have no choice. Their economy depends on our trade networks." "Does it?" Crystallis asked. "I have reviewed the data. Human colonies produce 90% of what they need internally. Their trade with us is helpful but not necessary. Can we say the same about our trade with them?" Zorath's membrane-covered eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting that we may have made a terrible mistake." The chamber erupted again. The insect-like Kraxon demanded immediate military action against human colonies. The reptilian Sorvan called for economic blockades. The ancient Morden, as always, said nothing. They simply watched and calculated. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the effects of humanity's departure were already being felt. On the trade station Nexus Prime, cargo ships sat idle in their docking bays. The station master, a Thashan named Vorn, stared at the logistics screen with growing horror. 17 hyperspace junction points were now closed to non-human traffic. These junctions were the fastest routes between the core worlds and the outer colonies. "How long until we can find alternate routes?" Vorn asked their assistant. "Weeks for some shipments, months for others. Some routes have no alternatives at all." Vorn's liquid form trembled. "The merchant guilds will riot." On the Valkyrie homeworld of Krath, the situation was even worse. The great cities of the Valkyrie depended on atmospheric processors to keep the air breathable. These massive machines cleaned the toxic gases that naturally filled the planet's atmosphere. Without them, the cities would become death traps within years. A Valkyrie engineer named Torax stood before the government council with a report that no one wanted to hear. "The atmospheric processors were built with human components," Torax explained. "The core filters, the energy regulators, the control systems. All designed and manufactured by human companies. We have no alternatives. Build our own," demanded a government minister. "It would take decades to develop the technology. We do not have decades. We have perhaps 5 years before the current systems begin to fail." The minister's purple skin went pale. 5 years? At best. And that assumes no major breakdowns before then. On Earth, Secretary General Daniel Hayes received reports from across human space. Every colony, every station, every outpost was secure. Trade had been disrupted, but Human Worlds was self-sufficient. Food production continued. Industry continued. Life continued. Linda Morrison brought him the latest intelligence updates. The Valkyrie merchant guilds are already pressuring their government. They're losing millions of credits every day. The Thashans are having problems with their communication networks. Apparently, they rely on our quantum algorithms. Daniel nodded slowly. And their military? Mobilizing, but slowly. They're having supply chain issues. Many of their weapon systems use components that we manufacture. Replacement parts are becoming scarce. Admiral Marcus Cole entered the room with a satisfied expression. "Sir, 3 Valkyrie warships attempted to enter the Sigma Junction. Our defense platforms turned them away without firing a shot. They didn't even try to force the issue." "They're testing us," Daniel said. seeing if we're serious. They know we're serious now. On the human colony of New Montana, Governor Patricia. Grant watched the last alien freighters lift off from the spaceport. The 24-hour deadline had passed. All non-human visitors had been required to leave. Her aide, Christopher Bell, who had recently returned from the council station with Ambassador Ellis, stood beside her. "It's strange," Christopher said. "I spent my whole life seeing aliens everywhere. On stations, on ships, in our cities. Now they're gone." "Not gone," Patricia corrected. "Just separated. There's a difference." "Do you think they'll attack?" Patricia considered the question. She had seen the military reports. She knew the strength of humanity's defenses. They might try, eventually, but not yet. Right now, they're too busy panicking. Christopher looked at the empty landing pads. "I never realized how much they needed us. I always thought it was the other way around. That's what they wanted us to think. That's what they told us for 300 years, that we were the weak ones, that we needed their protection, their guidance, their permission to exist." Patricia's voice hardened. They lied, or maybe they believed their own lies. Either way, they're learning the truth now. Back at the council chamber, the arguing continued into the night. Finally, Zorath called for a vote on military action against humanity. The result shocked everyone. Only the Velkari and the Kraxon voted in favor. The other 10 species abstained or voted against. The ancient alliance that had dominated the galaxy for millennia was fracturing. "Cowards," Zorath spat. "You would let these primitives humiliate us?" The Morden Elder, a being of pale blue crystal named Rathver, finally spoke. Their voice was like wind chimes in a storm. "We are not cowards, High Counselor. We are practical. Our analysis shows that military action against humanity would be costly and uncertain. Their defensive capabilities are far greater than we previously assessed." Previous assessments were wrong? Previous assessments were based on incomplete information. The humans have been building in secret. Their technology is more advanced than we believed. Their production capacity is enormous. Their population has grown to 30 billion across 47 colony worlds. Zorath stared at the Morden. 30 billion? That is impossible. It is fact. Humans reproduce quickly. They adapt quickly. They build quickly. In 3 centuries, they have expanded faster than any species in galactic history. Rathver paused. "We underestimated them. We all did." The chamber fell silent. For the first time, the full weight of the situation began to sink in. Crystallis spoke again. "We must find a way to negotiate, to bring them back to the table." "They will not negotiate," Zorath said bitterly. "I know humans. They are stubborn and proud. They will make us suffer before they even consider talking." "Then we will suffer," Crystallis replied, "because the alternative is worse." As the council members filed out of the chamber, defeated and divided, a new reality was becoming clear. The galaxy that they had known for millennia was changing. The balance of power was shifting. And humanity, the species they had mocked and dismissed for 3 centuries, was at the center of that change. On Earth, Daniel Hayes received one final report before retiring for the night. 3 species had already sent secret messages requesting private talks outside the council's oversight. He smiled and set the report aside. Let them wait. Let them understand what they had lost. Humanity had been patient for 300 years. Now it was the galaxy's turn to wait. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with beings from 12 different species. They sat in curved rows that rose toward a domed ceiling made of glass that showed the stars beyond. This was the most powerful place in the known galaxy. Every important decision was made here. Every war was started or stopped here. Every trade agreement was signed here. Ambassador Catherine Ellis walked through the massive doors and felt the eyes of 1,000 aliens turn toward her. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She had served humanity for 40 years in this chamber. She had smiled when she wanted to scream. She had accepted insults with grace. She had watched her species be treated like children over and over again. Today would be different. The Valkyrie representative, High Counselor Zorath, stood at the central podium. He was a tall creature with dark purple skin and 4 arms. His membrane-covered eyes showed no emotion as he spoke. His voice was cold and full of contempt. The human request for expanded mining rights in the outer reach is denied, Zorath announced. The Council has determined that humanity lacks the technological maturity to safely extract resources from that region. Perhaps in another century, they will be ready. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Thasians, beings made of flowing liquid metal, shimmered with amusement. The insect-like Kraxen clicked their mandibles in mockery. Even the ancient Morden, crystalline creatures who rarely showed emotion, seemed to glow brighter with satisfaction. Catherine stood still. She had expected this. Humanity had expected this. For 300 years, humans had been members of the Galactic Council. They had joined as eager newcomers, excited to take their place among the stars. They had been told to be patient. They had been told to learn from their elders. They had been told that one day they would be treated as equals. That day never came. Instead, humanity received the worst trade deals. Their ships were given the most dangerous patrol routes. Their colonies were denied protection. Their requests were always denied. Their voices were always ignored. Catherine remembered her first day in this chamber, 60 years ago, as a young aide. She had watched the previous human ambassador beg for fair treatment. The aliens had laughed then, too. Nothing had changed, but humanity had changed. Catherine activated her translation device so every species could understand her words. The United Earth Federation has heard the Council's decision. Zorath's 4 arms folded across his chest. Then you accept it, as you always do. No. Catherine's voice was calm but firm. We do not accept it. We reject this decision. We reject this council. We reject every treaty, every agreement, and every accord that humanity has ever signed with this body. The chamber went silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Catherine reached up and removed the diplomatic credentials that hung around her neck. The golden medallion had been worn by human ambassadors for 3 centuries. It was a symbol of humanity's place in the galactic community. She held it up for everyone to see, then dropped it on the floor. The sound of metal hitting stone echoed through the chamber. Effective immediately, Catherine continued. The United Earth Federation severs all diplomatic ties with the Galactic Council and its member species. We withdraw from all treaties. We close all embassies. We end all cooperation. Zorath's membrane-covered eyes went wide. You cannot be serious. This is madness. Humanity cannot survive without the Council. We will see about that. Catherine turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, chaos erupted. Aliens shouted in a dozen languages. Some demanded she return. Others called for immediate military action. The Kraxen ambassador screeched that humanity must be punished for this insult. Catherine did not look back. She walked through the doors and found her aide, Christopher Bell, waiting in the corridor. He was a young man with brown hair and nervous eyes. Is it done? He asked. It is done. They walked together toward the human shuttle bay. Along the way, they passed aliens who stared at them with shock, anger, and fear. Some moved out of their way. Others whispered to each other in languages that the translation devices did not pick up. Catherine felt lighter than she had in years. The weight of 3 centuries of humiliation had been lifted from her shoulders. Back on Earth, Secretary General Daniel Hayes stood before the United Security Council. The room was filled with the leaders of every human nation and colony. They had gathered in secret to prepare for this moment. Ambassador Ellis has delivered our message, Daniel announced. Humanity is now independent of the Galactic Council. Murmurs filled the room. Some leaders looked worried. Others looked excited. Admiral Marcus Cole, the commander of Earth's military forces, stood and spoke. Sir, what do we expect from the Council? Will they attack? Daniel shook his head. They will threaten. They will bluster. But they will not attack. Not yet. They think we are bluffing. They think we will come crawling back within a month. His Vice Secretary, Linda Morrison, stepped forward with a datapad. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and her expression was serious. Our analysis shows that the Council species are more dependent on humanity than they realize. We control 17 critical hyperspace junction points. Without our cooperation, their trade routes will be disrupted for weeks or months. What about their military? Ask Gavauder and Patricia Grant from the colony of New Montana. Their combined forces outnumber ours, Admiral Cole admitted. But our defensive grid is stronger than they know. We have been building in secret for generations. Our weapons, our ships, our technology. All of it is more advanced than they believe. Daniel Hayes looked around the room at the faces of human leaders. They came from different nations, different cultures, different backgrounds. But today, they were united. For 300 years, we played by their rules, Daniel said. We smiled when they insulted us. We accepted their scraps and called it progress. We told ourselves that patience would pay off. But patience has earned us nothing but contempt. He paused and let his words sink in. Today, we stop playing by their rules. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity can do when we stop holding ourselves back. They called us primitive. They called us children. They laughed at us. Daniel's eyes hardened. Let them laugh. Let them mock. Let them threaten. We will show them the truth. Humanity does not need the Galactic Council. The Galactic Council needs humanity. And now, they will learn what it means to lose us. The room erupted in applause. For the first time in 300 years, humanity stood alone. And for the first time in 300 years, humanity was not afraid. In her quarters, aboard the shuttle returning to Earth, Catherine Ellis looked out at the stars. Somewhere behind her, the Galactic Council was falling into chaos. Somewhere ahead of her, a new future waited. She smiled. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. 6 weeks had passed since humanity walked out of the Galactic Council. In that short time, the galaxy had changed more than it had in the previous 1,000 years. On the Thashan homeworld of Aquarius, a planet covered entirely by liquid metal oceans, the great communication spires were failing. These towers connected every Thashan colony, every ship, every outpost across their vast territory. They had been the backbone of Thashan civilization for centuries. Chief Engineer Morvax stood before the Central Authority with devastating news. Their liquid metal form was dim and slow-moving, a sign of deep distress. The quantum encryption algorithms are degrading, Morvax explained. Without updates from the human developers, we cannot maintain secure communications. Within 3 months, our network will be compromised. Can we not develop our own algorithms? Asked the Authority Prime. We have tried. Our best mathematicians have worked without rest since the human withdrawal. They've made no progress. The human systems are generations ahead of our own. The Authority Prime's form rippled with frustration. How did this happen? How did we become so dependent on them? It happened slowly, Morvax admitted. Over centuries, human technology was cheap and effective. It was easier to buy from them than to develop our own. We never considered what would happen if they stopped selling. This same story was repeating across the this galaxy. The Kraxan discovered that their medical systems relied on human pharmaceutical patents. Diseases that had been controlled for generations were now spreading again. Their doctors had no alternatives. The Sorvan learned that their agricultural automation used human software. Without updates, their food production was becoming unstable. Crop yields were falling every week. Even the mighty Velkari were suffering. Beyond the atmospheric processors, they found human technology everywhere. In their ships, in their factories, in their homes. The cheap, reliable human products they had purchased without thinking for 300 years were now traps. On Earth, Dr. Nancy Park presented the full analysis to the Security Council. Her voice was calm, but her eyes showed satisfaction. "We have mapped the dependencies," she explained, pointing to a holographic display that showed lines of connection spreading across the galaxy. Every species in the Council relies on human technology, human products, or human services in critical ways. Most of them never realized it. Admiral Marcus Cole leaned forward. "How did we achieve this?" "Patience, planning, and a very long memory." Nancy switched to a historical timeline. "After we joined the Council 300 years ago, our leaders understood that we would never be treated fairly through diplomacy. The aliens saw us as primitives. They would never accept us as equals." She paused to let this sink in. "So we decided to make ourselves necessary. We developed technologies that were slightly better and much cheaper than the alternatives. We offered generous terms. We made our products easy to use and hard to replace. Generation after generation, we wove ourselves into the fabric of galactic civilization." Secretary General Daniel Hayes spoke from his seat at the head of the table. It was called the long game. Only a few leaders in each generation knew the full plan. The rest of humanity simply lived their lives, worked hard, and built a better future. "And now the trap is sprung," Admiral Cole said with a grim smile. "It was never meant to be a trap," Daniel corrected. "It was meant to be insurance. We hoped we would never need to use it. We hoped that someday the Council would treat us fairly. But they never did. So here we are, on the neutral station Omega-7, a place that belonged to no species. Secret meetings were taking place. The Thashan ambassador, Crystallis, had traveled there to beg for human attention. The human representative at the station was a woman named Rachel Webb. She was young for a diplomat, only 35, but she had been chosen for her calm demeanor and sharp mind. Crystallis approached her in a private meeting room. Their liquid metal form was agitated, shifting constantly. "We must speak," Crystallis said. "The Thashan Collective wishes to establish independent relations with humanity outside the Council." Rachel's expression did not change. "The United Earth Federation is not accepting diplomatic missions at this time. Please. Our communication networks are failing. Our economy is collapsing. Our people are afraid." "Your people laughed when we asked for fair treatment," Rachel replied. "Your people called us primitives. Your people voted against us in the Council chamber every single time." Crystallis had no response. It was all true. "We were wrong," they finally admitted. "We were arrogant and blind. We treated humanity with contempt because we thought you were beneath us. We see now that we were fools." Rachel considered the alien before her. She could see their desperation. She could see their fear. Part of her wanted to help them, but her instructions were clear. "I will pass your message to my superiors, but I cannot promise anything. Humanity has a long memory. 300 years of insults cannot be erased with a single apology." Crystallis's form sagged. "We understand. We will wait. We will do whatever is necessary." After the Thashan left, Rachel contacted Earth with her report. Similar meetings were happening across the galaxy. Species that had once ignored humanity were now desperate for human attention. On the Morden homeworld, a planet of vast crystalline structures that sang in the solar wind, the elders gathered to discuss a crisis of a different kind. The Morden were ancient beings. They had traveled to stars for millions of years. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had always remained above the concerns of younger species. But now, their younger generations were in turmoil. Elder Rathfer addressed the assembly. Our youth have grown dependent on human cultural exports. Their entertainment, their music, their stories. When access to human networks was cut off, there were riots in 17 cities. Riots? Over entertainment? Another elder seemed confused. This is beneath us. Perhaps, but it is real. Our children have consumed human culture for generations. They identify with human heroes. They speak human phrases. They dream human dreams. Rathfer paused. We thought we were observing humanity. Instead, humanity was changing us. This was perhaps the most shocking revelation of all. The council species had always believed they were superior to humans. They had allowed human products and culture into their worlds without concern, thinking it was harmless, thought they had been wrong. Human music played in fashion homes. Human stories were taught in Craxon schools. Human fashion was worn by Sorvan youth. Human ideas had spread across the galaxy like seeds in the wind, taking root in places no one expected. On Earth, Catherine Ellis reviewed the intelligence reports with growing amazement. She had spent her entire career fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. She had never imagined it would end like this. They need us, she said softly. Not just our technology. Not just our products. They need us. Daniel Hayes nodded. The long game worked better than anyone predicted. We didn't just make ourselves useful. We made ourselves essential. What do we do now? Now we wait. Let them feel the full weight of our absence. Let them understand what they lost. And when they're ready to treat us as equals, truly equals, we'll consider talking. Catherine looked out at the stars through the window of the Secretary General's office. Somewhere out there, 12 species were scrambling to survive without humanity. The galaxy that had dismissed them, mocked them, and humiliated them for 3 centuries was now desperate for their return. It was not revenge. It was not cruelty. It was simply the natural result of 300 years of hard work and patient planning. Humanity had played the long game, and humanity had won. 3 months after humanity's withdrawal, the Galactic Council existed in name only. The great alliance that had ruled the stars for millennia was breaking apart, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Councilor Zorath had been removed from power after it was discovered that he had been secretly purchasing human technology through black market channels for years. While publicly denouncing humanity, he had privately recognized their value. This hypocrisy destroyed his political career. His replacement was a military commander named Korvath. He was younger, more aggressive, and determined to restore Velkari honor through force. We will strike at the human colonies, Korvath announced to his war council. A quick, decisive blow to show them that the Velkari will not be humiliated. His admirals exchanged nervous glances. Finally, the eldest among them, a scarred veteran named Drax, spoke up. Commander, I must show you something before we proceed. Drax activated a holographic display. It showed the results of military simulations. Thousands of scenarios testing Valkyrie forces against human defenses. Every simulation ended the same way. The Valkyrie fleet was destroyed. Korvath stared at the display with growing horror. This cannot be accurate. It is accurate, Drax said. We ran the simulations 10,000 times with different variables. The humans have defensive platforms that can destroy our capital ships before they come within weapons range. Their fighter craft are faster and more maneuverable than ours. Their soldiers are equipped with armor and weapons that our forces cannot match. How is this possible? They are primitives. They were never primitives, Commander. We only believed they were because that is what we wanted to believe. The truth is different. The humans have been building in secret for generations. Their technology is not inferior to ours. In many areas, it is superior. Corveth sank into his chair. His forearms hung limp at his sides. Then what do? No one had an answer. On the other side of the galaxy, the Thascians made their move. Ambassador Crystallis arrived at the human embassy on Omega-7 with an official offer of friendship. Vice Secretary Linda Morrison met with them personally. She had traveled from Earth specifically for this meeting, understanding its importance. The Thascian Collective wishes to establish full diplomatic relations with the United Earth Federation. Crystallis announced, "We offer a mutual defense treaty, preferential trade agreements, and public recognition of humanity's equal status among spacefaring civilizations." Linda considered the offer. It was generous, perhaps the most generous offer any alien species had ever made to humanity. "And what do you want in return?" she asked. "Access to your communication technology, updates for our quantum networks, and—" Crystallis paused, their liquid form rippling with embarrassment. "Cultural exchange. Our people have come to appreciate human art and entertainment. They wish for it to continue." Linda almost smiled. The Great Thascians, one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, were begging for human television shows and music. "I will present your offer to my government," Linda said. "But I must be honest with you. Humanity has not forgotten how your species treated us. Your support in the Council was always conditional. You voted against us when it was convenient. We know. We are not proud of our history." Crystallis' form dimmed. "But we're trying to change. We want to be different. We want to be true partners, not just allies of convenience. Words are easy. Actions are harder. Then let us show you through actions. Whatever you require, we will do. We will publicly denounce the Council's treatment of humanity. We will support your claims to the outer reach. We will do whatever is necessary to prove our sincerity." Linda nodded slowly. That would be a good start. News of the Thascian negotiations spread quickly. Within days, the Morden announced their own intention to pursue independent relations with humanity. Then the Sorvan. Then 3 smaller species who had barely been noticed in council debates. The Great Alliance was fracturing, and humanity was at the center of every crack. On the Kraxan homeworld, panic was setting in. Their medical systems were failing. Diseases were spreading. The Queen Mother summoned her advisors for an emergency session. "We must attack the humans," she demanded. "Seize their pharmaceutical facilities. Take what we need by force." Her war minister, a massive insectoid named Scrix, shook his armored head. "We cannot, Great Mother. Our fleet is in no condition to fight. We have been unable to obtain replacement parts for our weapons systems. Half our ships are not combat ready. Then buy the parts." "From whom?" "The humans made most of them, and those that we can find elsewhere are 10 times more expensive." The Queen Mother's mandibles clicked with fury. How did we allow this to happen? No one answered. They all knew how it had happened. They had been careless. They had been arrogant. They had believed that humanity was beneath them, not worth worrying about. They had been wrong. On Earth, Secretary General Daniel Hayes addressed the Global Assembly. Representatives from every human nation and colony were present, watching on screens that spanned the planet. "We have received formal requests for diplomatic relations from 6 council species," Daniel announced. The Thasians, the Morden, the Sorvan, and 3 others have all approached us seeking friendship. Cheers erupted from the assembly. After 3 centuries of rejection, humanity was finally being courted. But we must be careful, Daniel continued. These species are desperate. They come to us not because they respect us, but because they need us. We must ensure that any agreements we sign truly serve human interests. Ambassador Catherine Ellis stepped forward. She had been appointed to lead humanity's new diplomatic efforts. We will negotiate from a position of strength, Catherine said. We will demand full recognition of humanity's equal status. We will demand fair access to resources and trade routes. We will demand protection for human citizens in all territories. And we will demand public apologies for 3 centuries of discrimination. Will they agree to such terms? Someone asked from the assembly. Catherine smiled. They have no choice. On Omega 7 station, the negotiations continued. Species that had once ignored humanity now waited in line for appointments with human diplomats. The hallways of the neutral station, once dominated by aliens, now saw more human faces than ever before. Rachel Webb worked 18-hour days meeting with representatives from across the galaxy. Each species had the same story. They needed humanity. They were sorry for the past. They wanted to be friends. It's almost sad, she told her colleague, a young man named Stephen Hall, during a brief break. They spent 3 centuries treating us like dirt. Now they're practically begging. Do you feel sorry for them? Stephen asked. Rachel thought about it. A little. But mostly I feel proud. We earned this. Every human who worked hard, who invented something new, who built something better. They all contributed to this moment. What happens next? We rebuild the galaxy. But this time, on our terms. The Valkyrie were the last holdouts. Commander Korvath refused to negotiate, refused to apologize, refused to admit that his species had been wrong. But his position was weakening every day. The Valkyrie economy was collapsing. Their military was impotent. Their allies were abandoning them. Finally, after 3 months of silence, a message arrived at the human embassy on Omega-7. It was from the Valkyrie people, not their government. Millions of ordinary citizens had signed a petition demanding that Korvath begin negotiations with humanity. They could not survive much longer without human technology. Their atmospheric processors were showing signs of strain. Their children were asking why the humans had left. Korvath had no choice. He sent a formal request for diplomatic discussions, including something that had never been offered before. A full and unconditional apology for 3 centuries of discrimination against humanity. Catherine Ellis received the message in her office on Earth. She read it twice, then set it aside. Tell them we'll consider it, she instructed her aide. In a few weeks? A few weeks? They made us wait for 300 years. A few weeks won't hurt them. Outside her window, the sun was setting over the Atlantic Ocean. Somewhere out there, across the vast reaches of space, the galaxy was changing. The old order was dying. A new order was being born. And humanity was no longer the junior member of that order. Humanity was its center. 1 year had passed since humanity walked out of the Galactic Council. In that time, everything had changed. The Council itself no longer existed. The Great Chamber where 12 species had once ruled the galaxy now stood empty. The lights had been turned off. The doors had been sealed. No one came there anymore. In its place, a new organization had formed. It was called the Galactic Assembly, and it was built on principles that humanity had demanded: equal representation, fair trade, mutual respect, and transparent governance. 8 species had joined so far, all of them eager to prove that they had learned from the mistakes of the past. Secretary General Daniel Hayes stood at the podium of the Assembly's inaugural session. Behind him, The flags of 9 civilizations hung in a row, humanity's blue and green banner at the center. "We gather here today, not as masters and servants," Daniel said, "but as equals. Each species brings its own strengths, its own wisdom, its own gifts. Together, we can build something better than what came before." The representatives of the 8 alien species listened in respectful silence. They had come to understand that humanity, despite their youth among the stars, had much to teach them. After the ceremony, Catherine Ellis mingled with the diplomatic delegations. The Thashan ambassador, Crystalis, approached her with a warm greeting. "Ambassador Ellis, this is a historic day. The Thashan Collective is honored to stand beside humanity." Catherine smiled. "We have come a long way from our first meeting on Omega 7. Indeed. I remember begging for your attention. I remember the shame of that moment." Crystalis's liquid form shimmered. "But I am grateful now. That shame taught us humility. It reminded us that we are not as wise as we believed." "Humility is a good teacher," Catherine agreed. Nearby, the Morden elder Rathfer was speaking with Dr. Nancy Park. The crystalline being's form glowed with soft blue light. "Your species has taught us something valuable," Rathfer said. "We Morden have existed for millions of years. We thought we had seen everything, understood everything, but we were blind to the potential of your people. What changed your mind?" Nancy asked. "You children." Rathfer's voice was like distant bells. "When we cut off access to human culture, our young ones wept. They had grown up with your stories, your music, your dreams. They had absorbed your optimism, your belief that tomorrow could be better than today. We realized that humanity had given our ancient civilization something it had lost long ago. What was that? Hope." Nancy did not know what to say. She had expected gratitude, perhaps even respect. But this was something deeper. On the colony world of New Montana, Governor Patricia Grant watched the assembly ceremony on a large screen in the town square. Thousands of colonists had gathered to witness the historic moment. Beside her stood Christopher Bell, who had risen from aide to become her chief of staff. He had grown older in the past year, his eyes showing the weight of responsibilities he had never expected to carry. "Hard to believe it's real," Christopher said. "A year ago, we were throwing aliens out of our spaceport. Now we're leading a galactic assembly." Patricia nodded. "Change happens fast when people are motivated. And nothing motivates like necessity. Do you think it will last? This new order? I think it has a better chance than the old one. The council was built on dominance and hierarchy. The assembly is built on mutual benefit. That's a stronger foundation." The crowd cheered as Daniel Hayes finished his speech on the screen. For the first time in their lives, these colonists could be proud of humanity's place in the galaxy. They were not junior partners or second-class citizens. They were equals. On Earth, Admiral Marcus Cole reviewed the final military reports. The Valkyrie had formally surrendered all claims to territories that humanity had long disputed. The Kraxan had agreed to permanent peace terms. Even the species that had not joined the assembly had signed non-aggression treaties. "The galaxy is at peace," Cole reported to the Security Council. "Real peace, not the armed standoff we had before. Our defensive grid remains at full strength, but I don't expect we'll need to use it." "Don't become complacent," Daniel Hayes warned. "Peace is never permanent. We must remain strong." "Understood, sir. But for now, our people can rest easy. The threats we faced a year ago have been neutralized." Linda Morrison entered the room with a stack of trade agreements. "The economic projections are remarkable. With fair access to galactic markets, human industry is expected to double within 5 years. Our colonies are reporting record growth. Unemployment across human space has dropped to historic lows." "And the alien economies?" Daniel asked. "Recovering. Our technology sharing agreements are helping them stabilize. The Thasians have restored their communication networks. The Valkyrie atmospheric processors have been repaired. Linda paused. We could have let them suffer longer. Some people think we should have. Revenge is satisfying in the moment, Daniel replied. But it poisons the future. We wanted justice, not cruelty. We wanted respect, not domination. If we had become what they once were, we would have lost something important about ourselves. That night, Catherine Ellis attended a private dinner with representatives from the founding species of the Assembly. It was held in a beautiful garden on a space station orbiting Earth. With windows that showed the blue planet below. The mood was warm and friendly, a stark contrast to the cold formality of the old council chambers. Aliens and humans sat together, sharing food and conversation like old friends. Rathfer approached Catherine near the end of the evening. The Morden Elder's crystalline form caught the starlight and scattered it into rainbows. I have a question for you, Ambassador. One that has puzzled me since this crisis began. Ask, Catherine said. When humanity first joined the Council, you could not have known how things would unfold. The long game, as you call it, required patience spanning generations. How did your leaders convince your people to pursue such a distant goal? Our species has existed for millions of years, and we struggle to plan more than a century ahead. Catherine thought about the question. It was a good one. I think it comes from our history, she finally said. Humans have always faced challenges that seemed impossible. Ice ages, plagues, wars. Every time, we survived because we worked together and planned for the future. We plant trees whose shade we will never sit in. We build bridges we will never cross. We dream dreams that our grandchildren will make real. A remarkable trait. Sometimes it's frustrating. Humans are impatient by nature. We want results now, not in 100 years. But somehow, generation after generation, we keep working towards something better. Rathfer's form pulsed with soft light. Perhaps that is why the universe needs species like yours. Ancient ones like the Morden become tired. We lose our drive, our ambition, our hope. But humans are always young, always hungry, always reaching for more. Is that a compliment? It is an observation. And yes, it is a compliment. Catherine raised her glass to the Morden Elder. To the future, then. Whatever it brings. To the future. Later that night, Catherine stood alone at the observation window. The Earth hung below her, a sphere of blue and white and green. The planet where humanity had been born. The planet they had thought they might never return to when they first ventured into a hostile galaxy 3 centuries ago. They had survived. They had thrived. They had built something remarkable. And now they stood at the center of a new galactic order, not because they had conquered anyone, but because they had refused to be conquered. They had worked harder, planned longer, and dreamed bigger than anyone else thought. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. They would never make that mistake again. Catherine smiled and turned away from the window. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new negotiations, new opportunities. The work of building a better future never ended. But for tonight, she allowed herself to feel something she had rarely felt in her long career. Pride. Pride in her species. Pride in their achievements. Pride in the long journey from primitive beginnings to galactic significance. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, and this was only the beginning.